Oh, it's so incredible. Do you feel like a winner today?
I wish I could enter all these calls, man. We give away so much magic. So definitely get involved in this one, Mzansi, because we got you on this Health Tuesday for sure.
Oh, I love it. Speaking about Health Tuesday, let's get into this conversation that Raul mentioned earlier. Now, the gut is often called our second brain, and for good reason. Research actually shows now that gut health doesn't just affect digestion and immunity, no, it can also significantly impact our mental health, from anxiety and depression to brain fog, as well as mood swings. The balance of bacteria in our gut could play a bigger role in how we actually think that we feel.
Yeah, crazy stuff. So listen up. We've got an incredible panel here to discern between what's going on in this world. Joining us to explore this critical link, we have Dr. Chanel Martinezson, as well as, she's a medical doctor from InnoHealth Medical Centers. And then we've got Carla Lawrence, a registered dietitian, to unpack the gut-brain connection and how we can improve both our mental and physical well-being.
Yep.
Ladies, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
This conversation is starting to trend. I'm noticing this everywhere, and I'm so grateful for it because I think there's such a deep connection with this gut-brain sort of axis, if you want to call it. So maybe let's dive into what exactly is that and why is it so important for our mental health?
Yeah. So the gut-brain, this is a very interesting topic, but also very complex. So I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. Also in the time that we have, we don't have all the time. But the gut-brain axis is a bi-directional communication pathway.
Two-way comms?
Yes.
Wow.
So it's a two-way street. So the one does affect the other one and the other one does affect the one. So this does, lead to your body, what you eat and all of those things. There is serotonin that gets released in the gut as well, which is a happy hormone, one of the happy hormones.
Yeah, that's
so
good stuff.
when this is a disruption, it obviously does affect your mental health.
All right. You did mention food, and we are talking about the gut. So, Carl, I'm going to bring you in here. When it does come to eating, I mean, what can we actually eat to support that and make sure happy gut, happy life actually is something we experience?
So probiotics is basically the first thing that we think of, but we often forget about prebiotics. So the prebiotics is basically the food that feeds the probiotic and looks after the gut. So that's actually also very important. So any foods that are high in fiber basically support the gut as well.
Okay. And probiotics, the actual pill you take?
You can eat foods as well. You don't necessarily have to take pills, but there's certain foods that also support the bacteria in the gut as well. So things like yogurt, fermented drinks, kombucha, that can also support the gut.
And then I would imagine that there's a flip side to this because there's things that can help you, but then there's things that also can go against the system, especially when we're talking about foods that bring about like inflammation in the gut. How does this affect things and how does this have like a negative impact?
So chronic inflammation in the gut does have an impact because obviously if there's a disruption in this pathway, the vagus nerve is sorry, I forgot to say earlier, the vagus nerve is the communication between the brain and the gut.
That's a big one.
Yes,
right?
so it's a nerve in the body that all of us have, and it is the communication pathway. So if there is inflammation, the inflammation actually does affect this vagus nerve, and that disrupts the communication between the two. So certain foods do cause inflammation, and then the inflammation can actually also cause the serotonin levels and all of those things to just be disrupted.
Hang on, because like that's a big red flag here. We need to stay away from those foods. What should we maybe stay away from? What foods are like high inflammatory causes, if that's even the way to term it?
So your highly processed foods, definitely, high sugar foods, and then foods that don't have fiber. So high in fat as well. Those are the foods that will basically affect and cause inflammation in the body. Caffeine, foods that increase cortisol will all cause inflammation.
Oh, wow. Just when you think you have it locked and you're like, okay, cool, I'm restricting my calories, it's like inflammation enters the chapter.
It's what you eat, though.
Makes sense,
You can still check watch your calories and watch what you eat, but it's what you eat that's going to be important.
Well, this is, again, a bigger opportunity to improve on that.
Absolutely. I can just see people trying to overhaul their lifestyles right now, which is actually a good thing. We need to check in every now and then to make sure we're on the right path. When it comes to that link to anxiety and depression, you mentioned the connection between the two. Is that when it's off?
It can. So the serotonin, obviously, 95% of serotonin is actually helped released by the gut. So serotonin we always think is just in the brain, but there are actually precursors that are happening in the gut that affect that. So the happy hormones like dopamine and serotonin have a direct relationship between the two. But then there's also stress that comes into play. So there's chronic stress that obviously all of us, a lot of people have stress. And then cortisol levels increase with stress. So the more cortisol there is, the prolongation of cortisol in the body, if it's heightened, it actually causes more inflammation. So the more stress, more inflammation, more stress, more inflammation, and it just has
snowball
it's a
effect.
cycle. Yeah.
Oh my word, that's crazy. So Carla, maybe when you mentioned earlier some of those probiotics that really helps the gut, what else? Are there any other foods that we can add to it? You mentioned like yogurts, kimchis, fermented foods, kombuchas.
Sauerkraut.
I love that. I'm here for that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that can complement this?
Yeah, so you're going to look at omega-3s as well. That's also good for the brain. So your foods that are high in good fats.
Good fats, yeah.
So your salmon or your nuts and seeds, those are also going to help. And then vitamin D, foods high in vitamin D, magnesium.
Can we get the vitamin D from the sun as well?
You can.
You need a supplementation.
I've recently learned that and I've been taking that.
Yeah, and so those are the foods, other foods as well. So it's basically just having a balanced diet, which is also what we say all the time, but that are definitely foods that help. Green leafy veg, your anti-inflammatory vegetables and foods and fruits. So those are foods that can help with the gut as well.
Sure.
Okay.
At what point do we draw a line in the sand and say, okay, this is affecting my mental health, like I need to maybe seek help? Because sometimes we just have bad days and you're like, oh, it's that burger I ate. But at what point do you actually step in and go, okay, something needs to happen?
I think that if it's, so there's like depression and anxiety. Obviously, as doctors, we have a criteria that we checklist. We'll say, this is what you have, this is what you have, so then you have this diagnosis. So obviously, when it gets to that point, and usually with depression, it's like a 2-week cycle of, feeling low mood, just not wanting to do anything. Some foods do make you feel lethargic, and you just feel, not wanting to do anything. But then we must remember that in our brain, serotonin and dopamine are responsible for the hormone regulation. So if that is not balanced, it can actually affect your mood, and it does show itself in anxiety and depression. So I think just speak to your doctor, speak to the dietitian, because there are even things like health coaches out there in the world, that you can actually just speak to and see if it actually is a problem. Certain days, foods, even our menstrual cycle does change things. But I think if it becomes like a lifestyle impacting problem, then I think you need to speak to somebody.
Well, it's not all about the problem here, but the solution. And that's what we're providing you. And we're going to keep this conversation going. I can't be more grateful for these two incredible women serving us, educating us, and giving us a reason and insight into what's going on here, especially with that brain-gut axis. I think for now, though, we're going to carry on this conversation. But let's touch in with Joburg. Zanele, what's happening on your side? Because I know health boxes are being ticked left, right, and center.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Oh yes, Mzansi, welcome back. Your Feel Good Breakfast Show. What a beautiful Health Tuesday we've had. Not even an hour in, and I feel like I'm a doctor already with the amount of education coming my way. But let's continue that conversation because I know we all want to tick the box of health. So we're still with Dr. Chanel Martinezson, as well as as well as Carla Lawrence. They're both doctors and registered dietitians, and forming an incredible panel, helping us dive deeper into the science of your gut and brain connection. Now, everything from probiotics and prebiotics to lifestyle strategies and food choices. We want to know what you can do today to start feeling better mentally and physically. So let's bring on some actions. And again, ladies, thank you for this one. Carla, I want to dive straight into this because earlier we did speak about some of those foods, some of the probiotics and fermented foods that help in the situation. But exactly how does it strengthen that gut-brain connection?
So the probiotics and fermented food basically increase the good bacteria in the gut.
We want that, right?
We want that, yeah. So we don't want the bad bacteria because the bad bacteria will cause inflammation and it will affect cortisol and all those other things, not produce the serotonin.
Yeah.
So we don't want the bad bacteria. So the probiotics and the fermented foods will help increase the good bacteria, which will increase mood, increase your gut health, and just make you feel better overall.
Okay, this is starting to make sense. More reason to add these good foods into our diet. Now, another thing that we mentioned, Doc, earlier was that you can almost have like an overuse of certain things, supplements, foods, etc. Too much of anything doesn't seem to be a good thing. Is that the case with antibiotics? Is there a potential negative effect with overusing it?
So antibiotics and other medications can actually disrupt the gut biome. So this we call dysbiosis. So there's a change in the biome and the gut does not like that.
Okay.
So antibiotics is a big one because all patients want antibiotics all the time.
It's like the go-to. I've got something wrong with me. Take a 7-day course of antibiotics. Probiotics. Okay.
Yeah. So the antibiotics, patients, when they take it, it actually is supposed to kill the harmful bacteria, like Carla was saying, the bad bacteria. So obviously, if there's a bacterial infection, it's supposed to treat that.
Yes.
But the problem with antibiotics is that it's not very selective. It takes away all the bacteria.
Oh, it's like a bit of a blanket approach
Yes,
on
and
bacteria.
it clears out the good and the bad. So then that's what your gut obviously doesn't like as well. So that's when the doctors sometimes do prescribe probiotics with your antibiotics to just keep the balance in check. And then also some people do experience some diarrhea when they take antibiotics because there's a change in the biome. So definitely antibiotics is a big one. And then some medications do cause inflammation, like non-steroidal anti-inflammatories can cause inflammation, and that can also disrupt the biome.
Sure, hectic stuff. So be very aware if you're on a course maybe, and you can incorporate this to kind of balance that system.
Yes.
It'll help you with whatever you're dealing with. So then, when we talked about probiotics, right? That was from the fermented foods.
Yes.
What about prebiotics? Because I heard you mentioning that earlier, and you said we needed to increase our fiber in our
Yes.
diet. How are they
Yes.
related,
Yes.
and what's the connection exactly?
Yeah, so fiber is very interesting because fiber basically cleans out your gut. So it's
Okay.
like a broom that just sweeps out your gut. And also it's the food for the bacteria. So it's like a fertilizer, more the prebiotics.
fuels it.
So it fuels the bacteria. So the bacteria grow with the prebiotics and with the fiber. So that's why it's important to have that as well. So the prebiotics would be things like onions, bananas, oats, for example.
Yeah.
Those are your prebiotics. So
Okay.
including that in the diet as well will also help with increasing the good bacteria.
And is it only feeding the good bacteria or just bacteria in general?
More the good bacteria.
Okay.
So if there's more good bacteria, then the good bacteria is going to grow more than the bad bacteria.
It's just going to chow down on the feast. Okay.
And, yeah.
So, with regards to maybe testing whether or not we have these issues, is something like testing our stools, getting analysis in terms of that kind of insight, is that going to give us more insight into maybe the health risks that we might be facing, and also subsequently then the mental health risks that could come after that?
Yes. So testing the stool, so literally patients would bring me a stool specimen jar and
Okay.
send it to the lab. The lab will then test for certain balances of bacteria and the diversity of the bacteria. Like we were saying, you need a bit of, there are different big names of bacteria, but so different bacteria will cause different serotonin releases. So the sending the stool and analyzing what's in there will actually first tell us markers of inflammation, but then also which bacteria are actually good for the serotonin release and all of those things. So it can help in terms of risk, you know, to see how the production of those good neurotransmitters will actually affect your mental health.
Oh my word, okay. And obviously speak to you before just going through a process like
Yeah,
that.
like we
right?
would have to send it to the lab.
Yeah,
Or you
but-
can take a specimen to the lab by yourself, but the doctors will need to interpret what you're reading when
Just
your
rock
result.
up there with
Stool.
the goods. All right, before we leave, I know there's so much we can talk about, and we need to have these conversations, and we can carry on with this post this moment, and I think you guys can reach out to both these incredible ladies. But just some advice with regards to really tackling this, maybe from both of you, in terms of how do we lock this down, how do we get rid of the red flags, and advice to move forward and gain a bit advantage here. What would you suggest?
I think Carla can speak about the diet, but I'll speak about the other things, the things that's not related to diet. So first, exercise. I know we say this on the couch all the time, but exercise
Love
does
that,
help
yes.
with gut motility and then the diversity of the bacteria. But then also it's a good release of happy hormones, so just natural happy hormones.
serotonin,
So
yes.
yeah. So you know your body just, you feel happier when you run or walk a little bit. Then the other thing is good hydration and good sleep puts less stress on the body, so that inflammatory process and all of those things, you don't
Okay.
want your body to be in an immunocompromised state. And then thirdly, antibiotics. You know, just don't, I spend a lot of time speaking to my patients about you don't need the antibiotic, it's a viral infection, I don't think it's going to work, because it's going to do more harm than good.
Yeah.
So try not to overuse those like medications unnecessarily.
Okay, yeah.
Speak about the diet.
From a diet perspective, be mindful of your diet. So know what you are doing, be aware of what you are eating, and then increase your fiber, your vegetables, have a balanced diet, because even protein helps with the bacteria, carbs help with the bacteria, good fats. So just a well-balanced overall diet.
Absolutely. Love this conversation. Ladies, thank you so much once again for sharing your time with us, educating the nation. And a reminder, obviously, Dr. Chanel is here, and as well as Carla, just doing, Carla Chanel doing some incredible things and bringing us a level of education that we all need. This is a conversation we need to action, and hopefully we can do that with pride and level up our health. For now, let's get back to Joburg and see what's happening on the other side of our health conversations.